Hello, this is Alex. Today I'm going to replay a pot limit Omaha 8 or better tournament. Why is that? Well, because people are getting better and better at playing no hold'em. However, these diverse different kind of tournaments like pot limit Omaha or P8 are still pretty soft, and they require a pretty different strategy. At least that's my opinion, and that's also not as covered as Hold'em tournaments. So let's do one. So I'm gonna replay a $50 buy-in tournament that I played on PokerStars. About a couple hundred people playing it. It's full ring. It would be better if it was 6 max, but well, this one is full ring. And it starts at 1020 with about 3000 chips. So 10 10 4 4. If you're not used to PLO8, it's playable in PLO. It's actually quite okay, but in PLO 8 or better, it can't make a low, so you just pass. And so in the early phases of these Omaha 8 tournaments, you're looking to play. You won't be able to drive people out of a pot pre-flop, so you're looking to get in the pot with a crowd of people playing bad hands, flop something good, and value bet them to death. So here there's one low card, so their hand is not neither good for high, and obviously can't make a low, so you just fold to you. You have to play fairly tight, not super tight, but because you still want to play pots in position with the crowd who plays badly that I described, but still. So a AK-7-4, the Kalashnikov hand without a suit, I don't think there is value in calling this. You're gonna make a bad low that is going to be second or third. Here I'm in position, so and it's only 20, so I put it in, but it's really close, and folding is not bad here. So see here, I have a draw to the second low, and for 20, it's annoying. I don't know what I did. It's really I wouldn't fault myself for folding. I think it's a solid play, because well, I know I'm gonna call. Well, so far it's only 20, so okay. So now I have a gut shot to go with it, but this guy is starting to bet a meaningful amount. So with my second low and a gut shot, I think I have to fold, and I do that, which is good. Now this is more like it. This is a solid PLO8 hand. It's still not a hand that you want to raise a lot pre-flop, because well, if you go all in pre-flop with it against anything, since it has pretty weak high potential, you're not gonna have a big edge. The edge from this hand comes from playing pots, flops where you have a locked low and you can free roll for high, or play a multi-way low where some other guy has an ace-deuce and gets it counterfeited, and you free plays or your suit plays, and so you can quarter people. So here yellow roses open, min raises, and you get a caller. You could say that you might want to sweeten the pot by re-raising it a little. It wouldn't be bad, but you can also just call and see a pot with 100 people. Well, here 5-handed, but we're in position and we have a sweet PLO8 hand. And well, sometimes you flop nothing, and so here, well, the bet is really tiny, so the probability of getting a low is about 1 in 8, if I remember correctly. When you have one low card and you have all these, well, if a low materializes, you'll have it when you have ace deuce 3 4. So we're playing for half a pot with a really speculative hand. So again, the solid no nonsense plays to fold, which I do. So okay, I was afraid I was gonna call and have to explain that sometimes. Well, I want to fish around for 40 chips, but here I did the solid play. Next hand, unplayable. This is a tempting hand because it's double suited, but the low is just not good enough. You're gonna make an ace-6 low, which is going to be second or third best. The high is pretty okay, but in early position especially, you fold this. The blinds have gone up to 15-30. This is a hand that's okay if I don't have to put any additional chip, but again the 7 hurts the high potential and it has no low potential. Okay, so I have a wrap, but there's a flush on board, so I'm not gonna bear any action, but there is none. So yeah, okay, this guy bets, so now I fold. If nobody bets, then in these kind of spots, well, you can't steal because there are 2 low cards. If there are 2 low cards, any low is going to call. But in some cases, you can. It's not because it's a game where everybody calls pre-flop that you can't do some little stealing in pots where that appear to be unclaimed that nobody seems to want. So here, just fold. It's just I don't want to be drawing to a very weak hand. This is also fairly unplayable, especially after this guy raises. Same for this one. This is tempting because it's double suited, but also I think the best play is just to fold, especially after an early position raise. And this guy seems to be fairly tight. So how to interpret these early position raise? This guy raised 4 pot. He went from 15 to well, 7 times the small blind. And so often in these Omaha tournaments, when they have ace deuce, they limp if it's a bad ace deuce, or they raise to 2x or 3x. And when they raise 4 pot, it's often ace ace something, often ace ace small. And so you can get some information that's not 100% reliable, but still pretty good from the raise amounts. So 105 alarm bells, well, 4 pot size bell from early position, alarm bells go off. This might be an ace ace baby hand. So I fold, which is good. And well, we might find out what he had because now he has 2 covers. He still bets 4 pot, so it's completely consistent with the ace ace deuce story. And we don't know what he has. Another hand that is not really good for high and has no low potential. So don't get trapped by these double suited hands that might look pretty but are total garbage. This one at least isn't double suited, so nobody's gonna play it. This one is single suited, but not a lot of people are gonna play it. This is a double suited hand that PLO high players might like, and high low it's bad. This is another ace-6. Well, in the early phases you have to play pretty tight, and ace-6 with no suit, it's really bad. Ace queen queen 4 double suited is pretty good because it has some high potential and an ace 4 for low with a double suit. Again, the 105 raise in early position sets off alarm bells. I still call for 1 raise just because, well, it's we're still fairly deep. We have 100 big blinds. And if we flop something good, we'll have position at least on the initial raiser. And we have a draw to the second best low and another card. And he still bets 4 pot. We have 2 backdoor flushes. So he's telling a story like ace ace 3, but I don't know if I folded this. Low variance plays to fold. It's a little nitty. I did call. Okay, this is my dream card because now I have a nut low and a free roll for high. So he checks. And here in PLO8 you often bet 4 pot. You don't have to balance your play, because if you had a choice of how much you want to bet, I'd like to put all my stack into it max pressure, because there's a pretty good chance this guy has aces and I want him out of a pot, because otherwise we're going to split. I'm going to get the low and he's going to get the high. So here I just bet well, I'm a bit almost full pot, but I think it's even better to go full pot here. Anyway, it's pretty obvious that we're going all in on the river because you only have something like 1500 left. But he thought so, we won't know. And it's quite possible if he had ace ace 3, now that I put some apply some pressure, he can't really play if he doesn't have another low. And so I push him out of his high hand because I'm not sure my queen queen is good. So so this is the story where you fish around for a little money, and when you have a lock, then you push and well, you start throwing in the big bets and hope some guy decides to call despite not having the odds, because the hands go. You have some hands that are much stronger than others, and especially post flop when you have a lock and free rolls. And typically, you hope that he's gonna call with ace 5, king jack, something like that, and be dominated for both ends of the pot. And it will happen. A lot of people will call because, well, it's PL08. People are not used to playing this a lot, and so they do all kinds of fishy stuff. So back to unplayable hands. Do 3, 4, 5 in late position is playable. For 50, it's playable with because if an ace comes, you might get in some pretty good situations. So I limp, but when I get raised to full pot by this guy, I'm already in a sticky spot. Well, there's already 2 cards in the pot, so I'm probably gonna call. But this guy, I'm almost sure this guy has an ace, so it reduces the probability of him, of me flopping an ace. So it wouldn't be bad to quit the hand right now and fold. I call because, well, I'm as tempted as everyone to see a flop. And now he bets again. We see a raise. This guy probably has an 8. And, ooh, showdown. So, this guy had raised full pot with ace, king, 10 deuce, which is not a bad play because the king and the 10 gives some pretty good high potential on, and also he has a nut flush draw. Calling the flop is bad because I haven't revealed this hand, but I'm pretty sure this guy has an 8, although probably are splitting by now. Yes, he has an 8. So this guy played pretty fishy on the flop. So you see, he played very correctly pre-flop, but then on the flop, he chose to put some money in where against an obvious 8 where he had, well, a king, but so what, and a backdoor low. And well, pot limit Omaha 8 is a forgiving game this time because he splits the pot, but it's the kind of mistake that accumulates and allows good players to get some pretty damn good results in this. So I think I skip the hand. Oh yeah, okay. Okay, nice Piero high hand. Omaha 8 here. I'm raising full pot. I could limp here too because I'm never gonna get in a great situation. In the early stages you never steal the blinds almost. The only times during these tournaments where you can steal the blinds are bubble spots and late in the game against when the loose player have been filtered out, and you sometimes find yourself against some pretty tight players in the blinds, but that doesn't happen often, and that never happens early in the tournament. So here I'm raising with only high value and I get called. So it's not that great of a situation because obviously my low potential is super bad. But this is a decent flop because I have a nut flush draw, and I have the aces, and I have a bad low draw. So I'm betting full pot, and I'm trying to make him fold an ace deuce, queen jack, for instance, for low. But also already I'm in a pretty high variance spot because if he raises, I'm gonna be more or less obliged to call like this. Yeah, he has 758 left, so I just stick it in. And well, sometimes I'll have trips, and then I'll be, well, at least I'll have my hot outs. So That's why in these with this kind of hand, limping pre-flop avoids getting into this high variance situation, which is, well, improves your survival odds. Here, well, I guess I survived because the hand history goes on. But, well, yes, now I'm pretty sure I did survive. And he did have a 7-7-5. So he had trip sevens. So he did have our aces crushed on the flop, but however our low draw was live because the 7 and 5 both were already in the board. So, and the hearts were there, so actually I scoop him, which is sweet. On the flop it was probably 50-50. I don't have my O8 calculator at hand, but well, let's have a look. Okay, I just ran it in 2 dimes. So pre-flop it's almost exactly 50-50. So you can try pushing your edge with a pair of aces in PLO8. Well, the edge is 50.6 to 49.4. So yes, you're never a big dog with his hand, but the edge is really thin, and in tournaments the whole goal is to be pushing bigger edges and not get into pure variance spots. Let's try to add the board like something like this, and you can see that now I was a small dog on the board, but so it was a bit of a coin flip situation, a bad coin flip for me, but I got lucky and doubled up, and I get almost the same kind of hand, except now the low is much better because I have an ace-3 instead of an ace-8, and this guy who's been playing 65 calls me. So here I could, I'm pretty sure I did sweeten the pot. Since I have chips now, I can make an argument for raising full pot. He's probably gonna call because that's what loose players do, but I don't care. I probably have an edge even if I don't have position. So this is what happens, and well, I flop something. Well, it's mediocre in both directions. I have an overpair and I have a bad. Well, I have a draw to a second best low, but it's still quite okay. And this guy could have an ace deuce, but could also have a variety of things because he seems to be playing fairly loose, and the 6-8 is not very likely to be out there. So I apply some pressure and I bet full pot and get called, and this is a really bad card for me because now I don't have a low anymore and he might have one, and I have a pair of aces but with a queen kicker, but that's pretty sucky. So I check, he bets full pot, so now he probably has, well, he can have deuce 3-4 or something like that, and I'm pretty sure I fold here, yes. This is another mediocre hand. Okay, if it was limped, I might have been tempted to complete because I had 5 deuce and a 6, which are useful cards. Because sometimes if you get an ace-3-4 flop, you have a nut low and some you get a hand with which you can quarter people because the 6 plays. When it's raised, of course, it becomes a fold. This is not good. Okay, I'm skipping. So if you want. So some beginning players might be tempted to play this in early position with the ace-6, even with a suit. It's a bad hand. This is much better. Okay, so we have 2 limpers, and here I'm in the big blind now. I'm out of position, but I want to sweeten the pot, make a small raise. I'm pretty sure we're gonna call it because I think my hand is going to be much better than their average hand. So I make it 150, and I don't do this to get heads up or to isolate or to try to win the pot outright because I know this is not going to happen. See, we both call, but because on average I have the best hand and the best equity. Well, but sometimes I flop. Not much. Here I have backdoor low draw and backdoor flush draw, but that's about it. So I check, but everybody checks along. And here, when a 6 falls, this is a spot where you can try to bluff, because, well, where not to try to bluff when there are 2 cards so low, because people love to draw to lows. But here, well, you can rep a 6. There's a flush draw that somebody might have. Did I do it? Yes. So I bet 250. I don't need to bet 4 pot. If I had a 6, I would have no reason to bet 4 pot. And so it's important to identify these spots where you can just try to pepper the pot a little bit and have a good chance of success, because here I need to win this pot about 25% of it, well, maybe no more, let's say 25% of the time, to break even, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to win it way more often, and sometimes I'm going to get called and somehow bump into a winning hand, but I don't see really how that's going to happen. But this time, zoop, they ran away. And especially here, I'm playing pretty tight. I'm 25-10, and so in most of these guys' eyes, I'm a nit, and when I bet this King 9-6-6, it's pretty sure that I have a 6, so they must think they're super smart, because they have seen that my hand was obviously trips and they folded. And so you can use the image that you get by playing some reasonably tight hand selection pre-flop to win some pots post-flop in situations where it's fairly likely that nobody's going to be very interested. Okay, here, if it's limp to me, I'm probably going to call. Here there's a min raise, so the 8 and the 7 are really bad, but if it was 7-6 instead of 7-8, I probably would call. The double suited is pretty nice, but here I think it's too weak. Okay, so here this is nice, because I have the ace deuce, but I also have some high cards, which are important because they give me an ability to scoop, and I also have position, which is very useful. So here I can raise all kinds of amounts. Full pot, I'm not sure it's the best, because, well, it increases variance, and I don't mind if I want to get a bunch of calls, but I'm probably still gonna, yeah, so I raise it to 3x. I expect to maybe get a guy or 2 out of a pot and the rest to call. Well, I don't think I got many of them. I got a big blind out. Apart from that, we're seeing a flop 5 hand. So this is typical from these Omaha 8 tournaments. You get 5 people to a flop, so anytime you have something good, you can push a pre-flop edge, and still it's fairly small pots now that we doubled up in the previous hand, so we can. So here, okay, ace deuce. So if he had made it full pot, I would fold. Because, well, if you here I only have 8 outs to make a nut low, and I don't have a lot of high potential. But since he made a small bet, I'm going to call, because, well, I have a nut low draw. But be careful, this is a mistake that a lot of people make, calling to the nut low with no scoop potential, no redraws, regardless of odds. And, well, here it's only okay because the bet is small. If it was more than 400, it would be reasonable to fold. Because, well, okay, I have an ace deuce, but even if a low card comes that gives me the nut low, I can get quartered, because the call raise sequence is congruent with other players having an ace deuce also. So okay, so I make my nut low. This guy checks, this guy calls. So here a big mistake would be to raise, because it's quite likely that another guy has an ace deuce, and we don't want to get quartered, and we have no high. So we just call, and this is pretty bad. So now he bets 1900. Our low is 7-6-5 deuce ace, and if he has ace 3, ace 4, he beats us. And our high is a pair of deuces, so I think we have to run away. And, well, this is the problem with the dry low draws. Well, sometimes you get there and still make nothing and still have to fold. Here, a lot of beginning players might be tempted to make a frustration call, maybe thinking, either the 7-6-5 deuce ace low or the pair of deuces might get half a pot, but it's really bad. Okay, so the blinds have gone up to 5,800, and there's a raise. So even if this hand has 3 baby cards, the 10 doesn't play with them, and so it's a fold. This is bad. Okay, just skipping the unplayable hands. By now, I suppose you're able to recognize them. So this is a high only hand. High only hands, you can play them in the early stages because, well, you're still fishing for some good flops. You're not risking a big chunk of your stack, because a lot of these spots, when I start limping, they're going to be limped and nobody's going to raise. So I'm going to be able to see the flop just 100. In later stages, had I been in position, I could try to steal the blinds. Here it would be very bad to try to steal the blinds. It's just not going to work, and end up in situations which are pure variance or worse, end up against an ace low hand, which would be a favorite over our hands. Well, see what I said about being able to see a flop for 100? It happens, and everybody sees a flop. So it's 8-handed, and well, there are 2 low cards, so our hand is junk. We're going for a showdown if nobody raises, but otherwise we're not interested in the spots. So check, check, check. This guy bets 200. So a tiny bet. Here you have to be really disciplined to make a fold or make a call, thinking, okay, my pair of aces might be good, and I have a backdoor flush, backdoor straight for high. But what did I do? I was disciplined and did fold, which is good, at least for your instruction if you're a new Omaha 8 player. Let's see how this develops. Yeah, so now we would have to fold and have put in something like 200 more, which is always bad. And here, this guy scoops. Well, would have scooped against us. This guy gets high and low, actually. So another flop that we can see 400, which is our 4th big blind, so that's fine with us. We have a double suited hand that we wouldn't necessarily call with had we been around here. And we flop a pair, no low draw, so it's easy. It's a check fold, except nobody bets. So here, with 3 low cards, this is not the same situation as before where we could bluff. There is a low out there, and it's a very bad bluff spot because people love to call with low hands. And let's check the round once again, and well, it's still a bad bluff spot, so maybe our 3 is good. I don't think it is. Okay, now he bets, I fold. Okay, 10-10-6-4. It has 2 vaguely low cards and a pair of 10s for high, and we only have to complete the big blind. So it's really it's an on the fence situation, but I think it's solid to just fold. But I did call, and I flop a low, which is something like the 19th low hand, and a straight draw for high, as well as an overpair. And well, when he bets 300, I have to fold. So here it's a big mistake to call because, well, you're obviously not having a low, and well, not having a good enough low, and you're giving them the option to free roll you if they have a flush draw, for instance, or anything. So I do fold. Okay, high only hand. The blinds are up to 1 and 200. No, it's still 50, 100. This guy min raised. I'm in position. I can fish around, but this is about the limit. We have 40 blinds. We would hate to cover 200 and have another guy re-raise behind, because then we would have to fold. there's no, it's not bad to fold right away, which I do. Okay, this is more like it. This is the bread and butter Omaha 8, well, pot limit Omaha 8 hand, because it has all kinds of nice teas like backup lows, flush draw, a 6. A 6 is a nice card because it allows you to get into situations where you can scoop a pot with a 6 high straight as well, having as nut lows and quarter people. So I raise, but I raise smallish. If people were really paying attention, they could use the tell I told you about before, with the ace deuce raising to 350 and ace deuce 6-4 raising to only 300 against me, because I might not be balancing against these guys. No, I almost did steal the blinds, but it happens every 200 hands in these tournaments. So I flop not a lot, so I'm happy to check it back. And now it gets pretty nice because I have a nutlow draw and some straight potential if a 5 comes. So here I think the easy play is just to call, not force anything, because well, if I raise and okay, he agonizes but ends up calling with king 3, I'm in a really bad spot, so I just call. And now my hand is junk, so I just pitch it. So sometimes you get good hands pre-flop that end up being bad, but that's the nature of the game, and you have to get over your disappointment. I was saying that Omaha 8 is a game for masochists played by sadists. Pot limit Omaha 8. So well, here, if I was a masochist, I got what I was looking for. Play the god. Well, actually, this saying refers to the ability of getting quartered by playing an ace deuce low and knowing that you're gonna be quartered, but doing it anyway. So, so this is unplayable. Let's skip to the next one. So trips, it's unplayable at PLO 8 and at PLO high, and also of course at PLO 8. Okay, this is a nice one. But you'll notice that I don't raise because I don't mind a family pot. I'm double suited. I have some backup. I could min raise, it would be okay too, but just flatting is fine, because if I min raise and pair of aces raises back, we're up to 800, 900, whereas here if pair of aces raises full pot, we're only up to 450, and I still have room to maneuver post flop. So as usual, everybody calls, and I flop quads. So here, well, I have quads. So I have a lock for high. The only question is how much to bet. Well, we want the lows to draw, but to draw with incorrect odds. So betting full pot is a little too much because they will correctly fold. Betting 100 or 200 is too little because they might correctly call, having one chance in 8 to make a backdoor low. Well, maybe it would still be incorrect, but I think betting something like 300 to 400, I bet 200, yeah, it's a little low, but I want to set up a bet on the next street. I think betting a little more would have been better. But anyway, this guy only have 564, so now the money is obviously going in. You have to bet it all here, and well, I hope he draws to his low, which he dutifully does, and I make a useless flush. Okay, nice, not flush by him, but my quads win. And well, we can see that he had a high only hand, and he made the same mistake. We saw another guy do the same mistake, playing top pair, top kicker on a board where you have a pair. And where you're against obvious trips, and here he compounded it by calling after when He thought he had a draw to a flush where I had quads, but he couldn't really be sure of that. But still, it was pretty bad on his part. Okay, so skip this. Here, okay, blinds are up to 75, 150. Free-handed flop with bad hand. I flop a 9, but it's nothing to get excited about. Okay, it's a high only hand, double suited. So I'll just complete here. Raising would be bad, just to increase variance, and I would still get called by the ace deuce or ace threes that are here. And when the flop comes low cards and green low cards, it becomes a check fold. Next one, this is bad, bad. This is bad too, but maybe it's more deceptively bad. Some people might be tempted to play it here. This has a 7, so for a high hand to be playable, it must not have any low cards, because if an 8 comes, or if a 7 comes, it's part of a low flop. So if it was a 9, 10, jack, king instead of 7, 9, 10, king, it might be playable as a high only hand, although here in early position it will be still, I think, a good play to fold it. But you can't play a high only hand that has one card between a deuce and an 8. As a rule, it's not bad. Okay, 6-5 deuce deuce. The pair of deuces actually hurts us. If it was 6-5 deuce 3, I would be tempted to play it, because it's one of those hands where you can quarter people that I told about earlier. But with a pair, it's just so this matches our definition of a high hand with a card between the deuce and the 8, so we can fold. And this. Okay, so this looks like a nice rundown. If you play pot limit high, you think that you should play this. But in Omaha 8, it's just cards that are between the 7 and 8, 9, all that are just hurt the potential of hand. And the low, we don't want to make a low with a 6 and a 5 or a 6 and a 7, so it's much better to just fold. This one, if we only have to complete, I might get tempted, because, well, we're bunched together. I can still make the low if, not low if the flop comes ace deuce 3, and it has a 6. Okay, so I have a bad low draw. But here, well, he bets enough to push me out of the pot. So I'm thankful that he didn't bet 100. So I would have been tempted to call to draw to a bad low, which is how you usually lose chips at Omaha 8. Okay, so this is the exception with high hands. If it has a pair in it, sometimes you might want to play like a pair of kings or a pair of aces. Sometimes you want to play it when it has one lookout. Obviously, a pair of aces with a 3, it would be a great hand. But here, well, it's a pure high hand. But this is about as strong as a 9, 10, queen, king, or something like that. Because of only pure value of a pair of kings. But it's still a fold in my book, I guess. Okay, so this is a nice hand. And we have a raise to 3x by Mandingo, so he didn't raise to 700, so he probably doesn't have ace baby. He probably has something like our hand, or maybe something like ace deuce and with high cards between a king and a jack. So we call. And we flop the low draws, and also a draw to a bad flush. But it's important to have some high potential, and we do have some. And also we have a straight draw with a 4, which could give us a bad straight. So here, although he bets pretty big, I think it's still a call. We're entering in a variance situation, so I hope we survive this one. This is about the second one in the tourney. And yeah, this is a good, very, very good card for us, because we have a nut low and some redraws. So get it in, he calls, and we get a straight. So it's pretty sweet. And he did have ace deuce queen 8, so his bet on the turn is pretty bad, because at this point he has his low is 8 deuce, and he doesn't have any high apart from the pair of aces with queen kicker. So he did have us beat on the turn for high, but we were free rolling and one of our cards got there. There were quite a bunch of cards that gave us the scoop. So let's do the equity sim if I can get this in. Up. So this is pre-flop. So pre-flop we have no edge actually. The queen, the high potential of our opponent's hand gives him a 54 to 45.6% edge, and so this is why you don't want to be pushing edges that don't exist with low only hands. But once we throw in the flop, which is 6 of spades, 7 of clubs, 9 of spades, let's see how this. So on the flop our edge is already 60-40, so we were really right to call, and folding to the 1000 bet would have been really bad, and I guess things can only get better if we throw in the ace of club that is the turn. And now yeah, we have a 72 to 27% edge. So here you can see that pre-flop there's no edge, but on the flop and on the turn you have some pretty good edges, and also a no risk situation on the turn, because we were insured to have a best low with a deuce 3 or almost, and we were free rolling for high. So this is how you get some chips in those tournaments. You don't make any the edge is not pre-flop, it's post-flop. So this is a bad hand. Okay, by now I guess you can recognize these. This might be a more tempting one, but in early position it's still a fold. This is a high hand with a low card, so you know it's a fold now. Oh, this is the big blind, so maybe we can play it for free. Blinds are 100, 200 now. Okay, blinds versus blind. Against a 33-6. Heads up, this in position, it's a fairly good hand, because it has a pair of threes that is playing for high. It has 3 low cards. The only thing that goes against it is we have no suits, but I quite like to apply some pressure by raising it to 600 here. I don't do it. I can't really trust this guy to fold. He's playing 33-6, and by now my hand is junk. So check, check. Check again. So here he doesn't seem very interested. I could bluff here. This is what I was getting at, because it's high only, there's no low, and he checked twice, and we have very little showdown potential with our pair of threes. Okay, now we have a 7 and there's a flush on board. We can still bluff, but we can also take the showdown with our 7, which is what I do, but bluffing would not have worked. He has 2 pairs, and he played this very passively. And also, yeah, we can make a note that he's 33-6, so he's passive pre-flop, but he's also very passive post-flop. Here he checked his 2 pair. Okay, there was a straight on board, but it's heads up. He had a decent hand, and he should have tried to drive out the draws that could have been out there. And if I raise pre-flop, it probably doesn't work. Increase variance against me. But so raising pre-flop is good if it has a reasonable chance of folding the small blind. So this guy maybe has no chance of folding, and then, well, checking is just lower variance. Here I have a pair of queens that I only have to complete, even if I have a 4, which is my definition of a bad high hand. So I do complete, but I am not going to pay the 800. Okay, this is bad. This is semi-good, not really good, but I have an ace-3, I have a suit, and I have a 6 as a backup. So don't raise this, but you can call. And see a flop 6-handed. I'm pretty sure that it's better than their average hand, and I have position, but it's not that much better, so don't raise. By raising I would select the ace deuces here and select the hands I don't have an edge on. Okay, so we have a nut flush draw, and that's about it. And the backdoor lows, and a pair of 6s. And some bad odds to draw to a nut flush draw. I have to pay 800 for a pot that is 2000, so it's 2.5 to 1, which is not really good. I have the ace-3, the 6 is backup, so I don't know if I call here. It's really close. I do call. Sorry. And well, the other guy calls too, which makes the situation a little better. And well, we run pretty good. So now here we want to bet full pot because we want to charge the ace deuces as much as we can, and they still might play. Okay, so I don't bet full pot, I bet still 3000. But this guy calls anyway, and I still have nuts. Okay, he had trip 6s, which is a pretty bad call, I guess. He only had 10 outs at best, and I had actually one of his 6s. So he probably didn't have the odds to draw to call a full pot and risk his tournament life. He didn't have a low, but it didn't really matter because any card that pairs the board or pairs the 6 doesn't put a low out there, so he was only paying for high. But another hand that I scoop, so now we have 13,000. And so we were able to, well, we won the flip in the beginning, but since we just pushed some edges post-flop without taking a lot of risks and have more chips than the average. Ace deuce 8-9. Oh, okay, so here we're going to play because it's an ace deuce, and obviously in Omaha 8 we want to have ace deuce, but it's really about the worst ace deuce possible, and so we absolutely don't want to raise here, and we might even fold if it gets if we meet heavy action here. Call, call, call. No heavy action for these guys. And now we have a low with a deuce 8 and a pair of aces, but it's still pretty ugly. So I think it's a fold, and I do fold, which is nice. It's always annoying when I recommend a play then discover I didn't make it. Okay, here I recommend folding, and same here. Here I recommend folding too. This is bad. I'm fast forwarding to the next decent hand, which is sometimes the way these tournaments should be played. You should think, okay, let's get to the next playable hand and sleep through the drought if you're getting a bunch of bad hands. So okay, so this is a little better. It has the ace deuce and it has a flush. It has an 8 for backup, but still in early position you just want to limp with this. And four-handed, not too bad. And this is a bad flop, so just fold. Okay, big blind special. We have just a high. No, this is so we have a bad high and a bad low draw, so no action. We can't spare any action with his pair of jacks. So he's betting super small. Well, she's betting. Lady Kansas City. So are we calling this? I don't know. If maybe we have some backdoor straight potential, and we have a jack, but it's. I think the easiest way to get out of this situation is just to fold, which I did. And you're often going to face a lot of these small annoying bets, like one third of a pot, and so well, there's still some judgment involved. You can't blindly say, "Oh, okay, I'm gonna fold everything except the draw to the nuts." No, but you don't want to indulge into calling because, well, you want to call, and it's just more fun to play that way, etc. Because, well, sometimes here, calling is bad, so don't do it. Okay, if it was only limped, I might have been tempted by this 7-6-4-3, because it can make some decent low with higher straight potential. But now that this guy raised to 4x, I'm pretty sure I fold. So this is unplayable. Okay, this is the next playable hand. We are going to raise, I guess, this. It's double suited, it has some pretty high potential, and we have less. Well, Chicken Woman has less than 20 blinds, so we might get a fold from a big blind. It's not sure, but it's worth trying. So I did raise, but a little less than 3x. And nobody does this, like reducing the raise size in PL08, like everybody does nowadays in Hold'em tournaments, but it does make sense as much as it does in Hold'em tournaments, because, well, we're still folding the same amount, especially these guys were not really very inelastic. They're doing the same thing, whether my raise is to 700 or to 875, which is probably the max, and so I should avoid the unnecessary variance. Just as it has become the norm in Hold'em tournaments. And no, I almost got the steal, but I don't mind that I didn't get the steal, because now I have a pretty good hand with my top pair and nut low draw. And Chicken Woman leads into us, but leads small, like 1/3 of a pot. So this might be a blocking bet. So I think we have raising is pretty good, because these leads, it might mean she doesn't want to. She wants to see the turn for this amount, 500, and we are going to try to disappoint her by raising an amount that commits her stack. She calls. Okay, now our low is counterfeited. We're still gonna bet because, well, there's only 1,000 left, and so there's not much point in checking, and because we might be good. 7 is good. And, well, pretty strange play by a Chicken Woman who had no low potential, and so decided to go for a broke on this flop with a second pair, an underpair to the queen on the board, and the flush draw. So it's obviously it's pretty ugly. Chicken Woman should have folded pre-flop, but this is why there is some money to be made, or at least these are fun tournaments that you can play for free and a little more, and get some pretty good results. Okay, 7-7-7. It's nice on the slot machine, but not good in 4-card poker. This one is a fold too. Okay, this one's playable. Here I have some high potential, so I could try to push these guys. Try to make the elusive first blind steal of a game. Anna Ivanovic is a regular Omaha 8 player, so we have a much better chance of getting a fold out of her than out of the random $50 tournament player. So I do make the raise, but you notice that I don't even make it 3x, I make it 2.5x. But no, we have Lady Kansas City with us, and we make the nut low, so it doesn't matter. So we can bet. I don't bet full pot because there's no point. We hope to get something for high before throwing in the big bets, and we can still get the money in two bets from this stage. But now our plan has changed because our load is counterfeited, and now we're looking to check fold instead of looking to bet. If the turn had been a king or a jack, we would have we would have bet something like 3,000 or 3,500, threatening to bet full pot on the river and hopefully quartering Lady Kansas City. But now we're checking and hoping she checks back. She doesn't, and we still fold. Because, well, if she has ace-5 or 5-6, it's not because she doesn't bet a lot that she's not value owning us. Okay. No free flop for Jack 10, 10, 6, so I'm going to fold. Oops. Yeah, it's not a good call. I don't like it. Even if it's only for one bet. Okay. Check, so I guess we turn a queen. Nope. We could bet this king, but no. Against three people, anyone with a king is going to be there. Corey is G. Bets the minimum for 250 now. Now we can call, we can maybe raise. I don't know. I think he's using his stack, trying to push people around. So we do call, and we flop full house. So here, at first sight, I think I'm going to be thinking about going for a check raise, but I'm not sure it's actually good because we might run into full house with king 9, etc. So I go for a full house, but for a check raise, but really, if Corey bets, which he does, but he bets super small, so here it's fairly safe to raise. But then if I get re-raised, I have to fold, which is super annoying. But now it's not that likely. But had he bet 2,000, maybe the best play is just to call. So I raised to 15. So yeah, trying to get a call by king or trying to rep a bluff, and he folds. And so we can make a note that this guy tried to abuse, well, to make some big stack plays by making some really small bets and try to push out people who have smaller stacks like us, but we're closing in with him. Okay, another hand which I would have been tempted to complete with, but no, I don't. Okay, ace deuce 4 6. Anna Ivanovic raises. So here I don't have a hand that wants to re-raise. She has 4,000, so if I re-raise and she has aces, she's gonna put it in. I keep saying she, but I'm pretty sure it's a guy. I don't know why. I'm pretty sure it's not the real Anna Ivanovic either. So I call. I think this is the correct play, and we see flop free-handed. I have a 4, I have a gut shot with a 5, and I have a nut low draw. When they both check, you can make a case for betting, and you can make a case for checking. So I have a chip, so I don't mind the variance, so I think betting is okay. Yeah, so I bet 1250 and they both fold. So this is unplayable. We're getting close to an hour, so I'm probably going to pause and there will be a part 2. Okay, let's replay this one. Okay, so here you have the pot-sized raise from early position that might be ace ace x, and ace 10 8 3 really doesn't play well, so you shouldn't reflex call any ace 3, and you might think, oh, there's a suit to go with it, there's a backup from v8, but it's really bad. So here you have to fold, and I hope I did. Yes, I do play reasonably okay. Okay, so I think we're gonna see a showdown because Anna is committed. Yeah, the ace baby might not apply because she was obviously very short, and with only How many blinds did she have? She had 5 blinds to start with, so she's gonna commit with a lot of hands, including ace jack deuce free. But we would have been doing pretty badly against ace deuce, ace jack deuce free. So good fold me. And well, okay. So this completes part 1 of this PLO8 tournament. So tell me if you want to see part 2, or if you're absolutely fed up of Omaha 8 part limit. Well, tell me also, and I'll try to come up with something else. You can leave some comments. I've been pretty lazy responding to the recent ones, but I had an excuse. I was lost somewhere in the Himalayas. So I might want to go back and answer my old comments. Beyond that, well, see you next time. This was Alex Martin for Stocks Poker.